Interrogator Forlax reporting. The ash wastes outside Hive Octavian. The data slate from the downed Valkyrie is in my possession. However, it would appear that fate has once again conspired against me, as before even the most rudimentary analysis of the data by my savant could take place, an alpha-grade sandstorm has struck the area, threatening to destroy all those not safely inside reinforced structures. We must withdraw at once. All in the area are fleeing with maximum haste back to the relative safety of the Hive. I beseech the God Emperor for help, and pray he does not abandon me this day. This is a rolling roads scenario. So a giant radioactive sandstorm is descending on the ash wastes, and everyone in the area is trying to hightail it as quickly as possible back to Hive Octavian to escape getting brutally buried alive and avoid getting sand in their armoured boots. 7 players are fighting in this scenario. Each only has one vehicle, and if that vehicle has transportation facilities, they can also bring one fighter as well. Because of the low body count, there will be no bottle checks in this scenario. The sandstorm is approaching from the southern edge of the table, and with the rolling road rules, in every end phase, all models, vehicles and terrain are moved 8 inches back towards the storm. If anyone goes off the southern table edge, they're swallowed by the sand and are out of action. After 5 turns, the Hive outskirts will appear on the northern edge of the table, and the objective is to simply escape into the Hive at this point. So survive 5 turns and then scurry off the table as quickly as possible. The scenario takes place in the near wastes, and because of the impending sandstorm, visibility is reduced to 18 inches, and all weapons must use their long range profile unless they've got either photo goggles or infrasights. Vehicles can move as normal, but because of the sandstorm, any fighter without a respirator on the wasteland floor treats it as difficult terrain, so that's half movement. Anyone with a respirator can move normally. Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines. Round 1 priority phase, and the Sons of the Pyre Corridor gang get it, so they'll go first. The Sons of the Pyre vehicle is a rock grinder Sufferance with twin-linked autocannon, and the fighter stood on the back is the champion Malkarium, armed with his massive devastating crossbow. They're going to group activate together, so Sufferance moves first. So it's going to do a move action followed by a move and fire action. First the move action, so it turns, moves forward 6 inches, and the second action is a move and fire action. It's going to fire first and then move afterwards. He's got a front and right arc with his devastating twin-linked autocannon. So he's going to swivel his autocannon round to the right and unleash hell upon the Ogrin vehicle Rolling Anvil. BS 4+, he has got photo goggles, so can use the short range modifier, however that is still +0. No cover, so it's going to be 4+ to hit. And he has hit twice, strength 7, Rolling Anvil has toughness 5 on its side armor, so it's 3+ to wound, and has wounded once. -2 armor penetration, it's got 4+ save, so it's 6+ to save, and has failed. So the first shot of the day penetrates. The autocannon has damage 2, so it's going to be 2 injury dice, and that's 2 glancing hits to the hull, which is a crew shaken result. That could have been a lot worse. So the vehicle is subject to the concussion condition, and it has to immediately make a handling check. So that's a handling check at -2. So 9+ required, handling 7+ normally, -2 for concussion. And it has failed, so that means immediately Rolling Anvil, the Ogrin vehicle, has become stationary and stalled, and with the approaching radioactive sandstorm, being dead in the water is not a good place to be right now. And then with the remainder of its move and fire action, that was the fire part, it's now got the move part. It's going to turn and move forward a further 3 inches towards the north end of the battlefield. It is a group activation though, so Malkarium, the Cawdor Firebrand champion, is gonna take a shot with his heavy crossbow at the Obsidian Syndicate Gene Stealer Corrupt Delac Gang's vehicle, Shadow Wraith. 3+ BS, he's got photo goggles as well, so he's not having to use the long range modifier. No cover, so it's 3+ to hit. And he's missed. Flies straight over the roof of the corrupt Delac limousine. The Rusty Nails Outcast gang is up next, sporting 3 light vehicles but no fighters, no transport areas to hang on to, and just running around at half move with a devastating storm up your arse probably isn't the best idea. And up first is Sundown, very fast light vehicle armed with a long las. He's going to do a move and shoot action. So moves forward, turning halfway through, continues on, so that's a full 4-inch movement. He can still fire, and he's taking aim at Malcarium, the Cawdor Firebrand. BS 4+ with a long las, firing at long range is actually a benefit, so he gains +1 for long range, so it's 3+ to hit. And has hit. Strength 4, the Cawdor Champion has toughness 3, so it's 3s to wound, and that's wounded. No armor pen, mesh armor's 5+, so it's going to be 5+ to save. Failed the save, so that's 1 damage. That knocks Malcarium down from 2 wounds to 1 and leaves him pinned. And decides not to advance any further forward with his second action. Doesn't want to put himself right in the firing arc of everyone's front weaponry, so decides to hang back for now, which might not be the best idea, bearing in mind that there is a sandstorm approaching behind him. So that's either an extremely stupid move or tactical genius. Only time will tell. Next up we have Crimson Justice, the Enforcer medium vehicle, and he's going to move forward with a move and fire action. Move forward 3 inches, and he's got a 270-degree firing arc with his Storm Bolters, which he's going to swivel to the right and unleash hell on the corrupt Obsidian Syndicate Genestealer vehicle Storm Wraith. 4+ BS, can use his short range modifier because he's also got photo goggles. Bit of an essential piece of equipment nowadays in the Ash Wastes. So that's going to be 3+ to hit. And has hit twice. Strength 4 on Storm Bolters. Storm Wraith has a side toughness of 5, so that's going to be 5s to wound. And neither have wounded. The side armor doing its job there. These limousines are built to last. And with his second action, he does decide to hightail it forward. Further 6 inches, simple move action. So he's drastically trying to escape the sandstorm, get as far north as possible. Next up, we have a group activation for the Velvet Privateers Van Saar gang. The vehicle, Lady Alina's Revenge, and Balderon is stood on the back wielding his heavy plasma. So it's another move and fire action. So it's half movement for the first action, and at any point within that movement, you can fire your weapons. So it's just turning first to get the firing arc ready for its missile launchers. Firing a crack missile into the side of Crimson Justice. 4+ to hit. Again, photo goggles, so can use the short range modifier, it's 3+ to hit. And as hit, not jammed. Strength 6 on a crack missile, side toughness is 6, so it's going to be 4s to wound, and has wounded just. -2 AP for the crack missile, 4+ save, so it's going to be 6s to save. And has failed, so that's penetrated. Is damaged 3 for a crack missile, so this could cause all kinds of carnage. And we've got a penetrating shot to the body. That's structural damage. That's -1 hull point and an immediate handling check. So actually escaped quite lightly in the end. Handling is 7+, so 7's required, and has just passed skin of his teeth. So Lady Alina's Revenge carries on forward the rest of the move and fire action, followed by a simple move action. Oh, but activating its gas promethium engine, which means any vehicle it passes by is going to possibly be set aflame by its giant gushing promethium spurts emanating from the back of its engines. So strength 3, toughness 6. That's 6+ to wound, so it's not wounded, but it does have the blaze effect on a 4+. Crimson Justice will be set on fire, and is. Crimson Justice is burning. And with the second part of the group activation, Balderon, the Augmech Champion, is He's going to spin around with his plasma cannon and unleash a fiery bolt hotter than the sun straight into the front of the already burning Enforcer vehicle. Firing on maximum power, which does make it unstable. However, it will produce an absolutely devastating hit if it connects. 2+ BS, short range +1, that means nothing. It's still going to be 2+ to hit. And as hit once not out of ammo, so it doesn't blow himself to smithereens with his unstable weapon. On max power though, it is strength 8. Strength 8 versus the front toughness of 6. That's going to be 3s to wound. Has wounded, AP -2, so it's a 6+ save. Failed just. That would probably have actually saved on min power. So good job he scaled it up to max. And damage 3 on maximal power. And it's a penetrating hit to the crew. So the driver is wounded. Driver suffers -1 BS, -1 handling, but can possibly heal himself in the end phase. But for now, the driver is burning, bleeding, and has a giant gaping plasma wound in the chest. Still, that's not going to stop him from performing the Emperor's duties. Ungot Grokchua, wielding his massive Storm Welder cannon, stood in the crew bay of Rolling Anvil, decides it's time to get involved in the action, and he's going to unleash the full electric fury of his Storm Welder at Blacklight, the Outcast light vehicle. 5+ BS, he is aiming, so that's +1. However, it does count as long range due to the weather effect and the fact that he doesn't have photo goggles, so that's 4+ to hit. And he has hit 6 times. Strength 5, toughness 3, so that's 3s to wound. And that's wounded 5 times, only 1 doesn't get through. AP -0, so it's 5+ saves for Blacklight. And he's made 4 saves. Saved 4 of them. Rolled an additional dice there by mistake, but no one at the time noticed, so he's got away with it for now. Very sneaky, always cheating these outcasts. So in the end, it's just 1 damage dice, and it's a penetrating blow to the hull, causing structural damage. That's -1 hull point. A light vehicle only has 1 hull point, so it is dead. You can cheat, but eventually the gods of chaos will see through your deception and crush you underfoot like every other worm. The Obsidian Syndicate up next, and it's Shadow Wraith group activating with the champion Astaroth. Astaroth currently sat relaxing inside the limousine, sipping champagne. And Shadow Wraith is going to perform a ram action, so it's full movement of 6 plus die 6 inches for the ram action. That's 5 inches, 11 inches. Yep, easily going to ram into the back of Crimson Justice. Because it's a ram action, the return damage back on Shadow Wraith will be based on half Crimson Justice's move. So it's going to be a much lesser hit on Shadow Wraith, the vehicle actually performing the ram. So Shadow Wraith has move 6, that relates to strength 5, plus the ram on front of the vehicle, gives it +1, that's 6, with toughness 6 of Crimson Justice. To the rear, we're looking at 4+ to wound, and has failed to wound. No damage to Crimson Justice. However, the ramming vehicle can still take damage itself. It is based on half movement because it was a ram action though, so that's down to a strength 3 hit versus toughness 5, so it's 5 for Crimson Justice to wound back on Shadow Wraith. And has failed to wound, so all in all, absolutely nothing. Second half of the group activation though, and Astaroth, the Nacht Ghoul champion, climbs out of the limousine, thoroughly annoyed that his drink just got spilled all over him from the crash. He's armed with a pair of deadly serpent's fangs and a flechette pistol. He's going to turn, climb up on top of his own vehicle, move forward, and then mount the burning back of Crimson Justice. Seems like everyone's got it in for the Enforcers today. It was a single action just to get out of the vehicle, so unfortunately he can't charge. Hellcat, the Venator Wolf Quad, armed with its heavy flamer, is going to do a move and fire action, turn to get Sundown and its firing arc, and empty burning Promethium all over it. Ammo check for the heavy flamer, so the weapon is not jammed. Hits automatically, strength 5, toughness 3, so it's 3+ to wound, and has wounded. 5+ save, AP -2, so there's no save. 1 damage, 1 wound, so it's just a single damage dice. And that is a catastrophic hit to the crew. The driver is blacked out, becomes unconscious, and the vehicle becomes stationary and stalled, so that's not going anywhere. Blaze on a 4+, so at least it's not on fire. However, with the driver currently asleep at the wheel, it still doesn't bode particularly well for the outcast light vehicle. Suddenly deciding to lurk around at the back on its first action maybe wasn't the wisest plan. And with the rest of its activation, it's going to finish off its move and fire action, moving forward, turn, and then a move action as far forward as possible, putting it just behind the Cordor Rock Grinder Sufferance. The Eternal Contempt. This is Interrogator Forlax's personal luxury land car. Fully decked out, as you'd expect. Every interrogator wants to travel in style. As well as nitro burners, power steering, all-wheel steering, a transport area, plasma coil engine, mine layers. It also comes fully equipped with those little tellies in the back of the driver's seats. Forlax himself is currently sat inside. But for now, with its first activation, it's going to do a move and fire action, turns and move forward 3 inches. And with its twin-linked bolters, he's going to have a shot at Astaroth, the Nacht Ghoul. The driver has photo goggles, so can use his short range +1, BS 4+, so it's going to be 3s to hit. There's no cover when you stood on top of the vehicle. And he has missed, not out of ammo. And for his second action, he's going to move forward the remaining 7 inches of his movements. And here we have Grievous, the third of the outcast vehicles. This vehicle is named after one of our amazing patrons. Thank you so much for your support. Really couldn't continue to do these kind of videos without your support, so thank you very much. If you'd like to have vehicles or characters named after you, feel free to sign up to the Patreon. Details are in the description. So Grievous doesn't actually have any weapons whatsoever. However, it does have a rather devastating wolf head ram mounted on its front, and with its move 8 speed and gliss injectors, it can perform an absolutely devastating head-on collision. However, at this point, it's deciding just to get the hell out of town, so it's performing a full speed ahead action that's triple move speed in a straight line directly forwards. So that's 24 inches of super pursuit mode straight up the battlefield. Rolling Anvil, the Ogryn vehicle, is currently stalled, so we'll attempt to restart its engines. It's a simple action, going to do a jump start, giving it +1 to its handling check, and has failed. Second action though, as it's simple action, it can do it twice, so we'll attempt to restart again 6+, and this time succeeds, so its engines are back in business, the vehicle is back up and running, Rolling Anvil is rolling again, but for this turn it can't do anything else, as the sandstorm approaches. Shrapnel, the Enforcer Patrolman, he's going to exit the Taurox out of the rear hatch. He does have a respirator, so he can move at full speed, without having to worry about the difficult terrain. First action, out of the back, and then he's going to turn and have a shot at Astaroth, the Nacht Ghoul, currently hitching a ride atop his Enforcer paddy wagon. Using salvo ammo, with his photo goggles, it's 4+ BS, short range +1, however at that angle he is in hard cover, which is -2, so it's going to be 5s to hit. And he has missed 3 times. Interrogator Forlax decides that discretion is the better part of valor and stays inside the vehicle. No point leaping out at this stage, just to have your own personal ground car drive away without you. And with that, round 1 comes to a close, so it's the end phase. Crimson Justice, the driver, is wounded, so rolls at this point to see if he recovers. 4 to 6 to recover, and has done so. So the driver shrugs off the plasma blast and keeps on trucking. Sundown, the outcast vehicle, is currently stalled, and the driver is blacked out. 4 to 6 needed to recover from his unconsciousness, and has failed, so remains unconscious. That is not going to be the best of news with the approaching sandstorm. And because it's a rolling road scenario, now everything moves back towards the southern table edge 8 inches. Both Sundown and Rolling Anvil are getting very close to the table edge. If you go off the table edge, the sandstorm has swallowed you whole. Round 2 priority phase, and the Genestealer corrupted Delac of the Obsidian Syndicate take it this time. They'll be going first. And it's another group activation between Shadow Wraith, the vehicle, and Astaroth, the Nacht Ghoul. First things first, Shadow Wraith is going to impact with Crimson Justice. Not a ram action, because that would end his activation, so he's going to run into the back of him instead. Strength 6, toughness 6 again, so it's 4+ to wound, and has wounded on a 5. -1 AP, another -1 for the rammer mounted on the front. 4+ save, so it's 6s to save overall. And has failed, so that's going to cause some damage. 1 damage +1 for the mounted ram, and that's a penetrating hit to the drive, which is a blowout. -1 hull point, -1 handling, and a loss of control test for Crimson Justice. So hull points drop to 2 and handling to 8+. There's a loss of control test at 8+ to pass, and has failed miserably. 1 to 3 going to the left, 4 to 6 to the right, and it can either swerve, jackknife, or flip. So a 45-degree swerve to the left, and then moves forward half its movement, so that's 3 inches. Astaroth the Nacht Ghoul, as he's not in a designated transport area, has to take an initiative check in order to stay on top of the vehicle. 2+ initiative, and has passed easily. The Nacht Ghoul are renowned for their surfing abilities. And the impact back on the Obsidian Syndicate vehicle, Strength 5, Toughness 5. Because it wasn't a ramming action, there's no reduced damage for Shadow Wraith. So Strength 5, Toughness 5, that's 4s to wound. And not wounded, so Shadow Wraith has come away from it absolutely scot-free. With the remainder of its first action, it's going to turn, and with a very tight squeeze, going to move through the hole it's just created by nudging Crimson Justice out of the way. And its second action is going to do a move and fire action, so move forward another 3 inches. And its heavy flame has got a 270-degree firing arc, so he's going to open up and burn both the Vansar vehicle, Lady Alina's Revenge, and also Balderon the Champion stood on its back. So first against the Vansar Ridge Runner, Strength 5, Rear Toughness of 5 for Lady Alina's Revenge, that's 4s to wound the vehicle. And has failed on a 1, miserable. Still a chance to set it on fire though, 4+ to blaze, and is on fire. Managed to set the fuel tanks alight. Against Balderon the Champion, Strength 5, Toughness 3, so it's 3s to wound. Has wounded, -1 armor penetration. However, the plasma cannon wielding champion does have mesh and an armored body glove. They're giving him a 4+ save, so that's 5+ overall to save. But has failed and loses a wound. He had 2 wounds, now he's down to 1. And again, 4+ to be set ablaze. Is on fire as well. The Obsidian Syndicate are causing all kinds of fiery devastation. Next part of the group activation, Astaroth the Nacht Ghoul decides to attack Crimson Justice in close combat, just hacking at the back of the vehicle with his Wolverine-style Serpent's Fangs. WS 2+, hitting a vehicle is +1 to hit. That doesn't matter, he's already 2+ though, so it's going to be 2s to hit. 2 attacks +1 for the second weapon, and all have hit very convincingly. Strength 6, Toughness 6, so it's 4s to wound. Serpent's Fangs do have phase, so if he does wound, there will be no save. 1 has wounded, no saving throw for the vehicle, and Serpent's Fangs have damage 1, so it's 1 damage dice. And as a glancing hit to the hull, the crew are shaken, giving the vehicle concussion and forcing it to take a handling check. Handling is 8+, concussion knocks another 2 off it unfortunately, so that is 10+ needed to succeed. And succeeds! 11! The driver, evidently an ex-Gorka Morka stunt driving champion. And with his second action, Astaroth decides it's time for a bit of acrobatic flair, leaps onto the back of Lady Alina's Revenge, the Ridge Runner, 2+ initiative to succeed, and has done so, so a spectacular flying leap onto the back of a moving vehicle. Sufferance, the Cawdor Rock Grinder, group activates with Malkarium the Champion, Going to perform a move and fire action to begin with. Turns slightly to the right and moves forward, getting Rolling Anvil, the Ogren vehicle, in its right firing arc. Twin-linked autocannons firing with full fury and maximum prejudice. BS 4+, no range modifiers, no cover, so it's forced to hit. And has hit, but is jammed, but because it's twin-linked it can re-roll the firepower dice if it wants. And hits twice the second time round. Twin-linked, very useful, means you hardly ever go out of ammo. Strength 7, front toughness of 5 for Rolling Anvil, so it's going to be 3+ to wound. And 1 has wounded, 1 fails, -2 armor penetration, save of 4+, so it's going to be 6s to save, which it fails to do, straight through the armor like it was made out of tinfoil. Damage 2, so that's 2 damage dice, and that is a catastrophic hit to the hull, weapon destroyed, so the mounted harpoon launcher has been taken out for the remainder of the battle, plus loses 1 hull point, and has to take a loss of control test, just when it managed to restart its engines as well. Seven plus handling for its loss of control test, and has succeeded. More excellent driving on display today. And with its second action, Sufferance of the Sons of the Pyre, going to make a 90-degree turn to the left and a single move action forward 6 inches. Again, try to power on forward as quickly as possible, away from the approaching fury of the sandstorm. The second half of the group activation sees Malkador, the Firebrand champion, leap to his feet. He had been previously pinned by the Long Las of Sundown. However, his heavy crossbow is unwieldy, so he won't be able to fire that this time, having just stood up. So instead, he's going to use his backup trusty stub gun, have a shot at Hellcat, the Venator Wolf Quad. BS 3+, long range, only just in range at all to be fair, so it's 3s to hit. And as hit, not jammed. Strength 3, toughness 3, so it's 4s to wound with the stub gun, and has failed to wound. Lucky for Hellcat, it's very embarrassing as a vehicle to be taken out by a stub gun. Next up, we have the Vansar Ridrunner, Lady Alina's Revenge, which is currently on fire. First off, the Blaze, strength 3, uses the rear toughness of the vehicle, so that's toughness 4, so it's 5s to wound. Is not wounded. Vehicles have to do a cool check when ablaze to see if they can activate properly. If they pass, they can move as normal. If they fail, they go out of control. Cool is 6+, and has passed, so can move normally this turn, and it's a 4+ to extinguish the fire. And has succeeded. The emergency sprinkler system kicks in, more commonly known as window washer fluid. So it can move normally, so it's going to perform a move and fire action as its first action. Astaroth needs to see if he can stay on top of the vehicle as it's zooming around, however. Initiative check of 2+ to stay on, and succeeds easily. This Nakhtagul was evidently a circus acrobat in a previous life. And then the driver, using his photo goggles, is going to launch a crack missile at the Cordor Rock Grinder Sufferance. 4+ BS, can use its short range modifier because of the photo goggles, so that's 3+ to hit. Has hit, not jammed. Crack missile is strength 6. The side toughness of a rock grinder, though, is toughness 7. Hugely thick adamantium plating all over this beast of a machine, so it's going to be 5s to wound. And has failed to wound, bounces off the side armor. And with the second half of his activation, he's going to turn 45 degrees and move up towards the northern edge of the battlefield. Again, Astaroth has to do an initiative check to stay on board, 2+ to stay surfing, and has passed, just clinging on for dear life. And as part of the group activation, Balderon, the Ogmech plasma cannon wielding champion, is going to have to try and put himself out. He is currently also burning alive. So strength 3, toughness 3, 4+ to wound, and has wounded. -1 armor penetration for Blaze, so it's a 5+ to save for Balderon, and has saved. Heat-proof asbestos armor, obviously. But he still stands, runs in a random direction that drops him straight off the back of the vehicle, and it's going to be a 4+ to extinguish the fire, which he succeeds in doing. However, it does leave him a little bit stranded off the back of his Ridge Runner transports. Crimson Justice, the Enforcer transports. Also ablaze, everything's on fire at the moment, just what you need in the middle of a red hot radioactive sandstorm. So it's going to be a strength 3, toughness 6, so that's 6+ for the blaze to cause any damage, and has failed. Cool check, 6+. If he passes, he can act normally. If he fails, it's a loss of control test. And has failed quite badly. So handling check, loss of control, that's 8+. And Snake Eyes has absolutely ballsed it. So that's a loss of control test, 1 to 3 left, 4 to 6 right, swerve, jackknife or roll. And has rolled! He's rolled! That's taken him out! When a vehicle rolls, just goes over onto its side, rolls over numerous times, smashes into the nearest object and explodes, taking it straight out of action. Crimson Justice is scrap. Out of action, just a pile of burning metal and rubber smouldering away on the side of the battlefield. Hellcat, the Venator Wolf Quad, is going to do a ramming action into the back of Sufferance, the Sons of the Pyre Cawdor Rock Grinder. It's got move 9, die 6 extra inches for the ramming action, 5 extra inches, that's 14 inches, going to easily get it into base-to-base contact. That's the insurance premium going up this month. So with move 9, that translates to strength 7 hit. It is armed with a ram +1, and the rear toughness of Sufferance is 6, so it's strength 8, toughness 6, 3s to wound. Has wounded just, -2 armor penetration, and another -1 for the ram. That's no save, save 4+, 0 save available, 3 damage, so that's 3 damage dice, and that's a catastrophic hit to the drive. That's a major malfunction. -2 hull points, -2 handling, and a loss of control check for the Rock Grinder. So hull points drop from 4 to 2, handling goes to 10+, and it's a loss of control test at 10+, which it quite predictably fails miserably. That's a loss of control test, again 1 to 3 left, 4 to 6 right, swerve, jackknife and roll. It is a jackknife to the left, 90-degree turn. The vehicle goes completely out of control, moves forward 3 inches, nearly colliding with the Obsidian Syndicate's limousine, only just slamming on the brakes in the nick of time. In the meantime though, the Wolf Quad will also take damage from the vehicle collision. Because it was a ram action though, the movement characteristic of the Rock Grinder is halved and knocking it to move 3, which means it's a strength 3 versus toughness 3 hit, so it's 4s to wound the Wolf Quad. And that's a 1, so no damage whatsoever to the ramming Venator Wolf Quad Hellcat. Next up to the crease, we have Eternal Contempt, 4-axis road car, and he's going to activate his Plasma Coil Engine, which provides an extra +2 inches movement. However, there is a possibility that it would explode. However, it does not explode this time. So the first action is just a move action, and with its second action, he's going to move and use its mine layer, dropping a melter bomb out of the back of the car, right in between Sufferance and Shadow Wraith, before speeding away to avoid the impending devastating melter blast. So the melter mine uses a large 5-inch blast template. That's going to hit both the Rock Grinder and the limousine. First up, a strength 8 hit against Sufferance's front armor, which is toughness 7, so that's 3s to wound the Rock Grinder, and has succeeded. -4 armor penetration, that's going to leave no save, normally a 4+ save, that's 3 damage against the Cawdor vehicle. That's a penetrating hit to the hull, causing structural damage, -1 hull point, and a handling check. Knocks it down to its last hull point, handling is 10+. And has failed, becomes immediately stationary and stalled. So the Sons of the Pyre vehicle is going to need emergency roadside assistance very quickly. And the same strength 8 hit against Shadow Wraith, toughness 5, so it's 3+ to wound, and has failed to wound, no wound. Rolling Anvil, the Ogryn vehicle, with very few options up its sleeve, having had its harpoon launcher previously destroyed. Basically it's just a 15-ton ramming machine at this point, and it's going to turn and drive straight into Hellcat. It's not a ramming action, deciding that he probably wouldn't be able to make the full distance if he had to roll for the second bit of movement, so it's just a straight up collision. With move 6, it's a strength 5 collision, plus the giant ram mounted on front of the vehicle is +1, so that's strength 6. The wolf quad has toughness 3 to the side, it can be 2+ to wound, and has wounded. Armor pen is -1, another -1 for the giant ram. The wolf quad save is 5+, that's no save. Damage 1, another +1 for the ram, so that's 2 damage dice. And that is a catastrophic hit to the engine, belching smoke and flame, -2 hull points, loss of control at -1, and for the remainder of the battle it cannot travel over 9 inches in its activation. However, Rolling Anvil will continue to plough forward with the remainder of its movement, smashing the wolf quad into the side of Sufferance, causing another hit to both vehicles. So again, exactly the same. Strength 6, toughness 3, it's 2 to wound, has wounded, same as previously, no save, and another 2 damage. Penetrating to the hull, structural damage, that's another -1 hull point, knocks it down from its final hull point down to 0, which leaves it as a steaming, oil-slicked stain on the desert floor. However, as a final act of revenge, Hellcat does get to impact back against Rolling Anvil. Because it's so fast, it delivers a strength 7 hit. Rolling Anvil has toughness 5 to the front, so it's 3+ to wound. Has been wounded. -2 armor pen, giving it a 6+ save. Has failed the save, so it's 2 damage back on Rolling Anvil from the impact. And that's a glancing hit to the engine. The engine stutters and stalls. The vehicle once again becomes stationary and stalled. Need to get the Ogryn back out with his big wrench fixing the engine. But it ain't over yet. As part of that chain collision, Hellcat was rammed into the side of Sufferance the Rock Grinder, meaning Sufferance will take a collision impact from Hellcat as well. Hellcat strength 7, Sufferance side toughness is 7, so it's 4s to wound, but hasn't wounded, so the Rock Grinder does come away with all of its bodywork still somewhat intact. Grievous, the Outcast Speeder, is going to perform a ramming action on Lady Alina's Revenge, the Vansar Ridge Runner. Turns, move 8 plus 1d6" movement. But it's a 1. Move 9, and that's not going to make it. Just need an extra little turbo boost to get all the way in to collide. Grievous does have Gliss Injectors, which it could have used, however it can only use them once per battle. Would have given it a huge boost in speed, but evidently saving it for later in the game. Shrapnel, the remaining Enforcer on foot, having just seen his transport vehicle flip and roll, smashed and blown to pieces. He's able to use his Respirator, meaning he can move his full 5 inches on the desert floor, charges up behind the limousine, and he's going to fire point blank range using his salvo ammo into the back of the Obsidian Syndicate vehicle. 3+ to hit, close range +1, can use close range because of his photo goggles, and has hit once. Strength 4, rear toughness of 5 on the limousine, so that's 5s to wound, and has failed to wound, just damaged the immaculate golden paintwork on the back of the luxury vehicle. Interrogator Forlax once again decides that without a respirator it's just not worth getting out of the vehicle at this point, and running around at half movement on difficult terrain, so stays inside his vehicle. Ungot Grokchua swivels on the spot, points his Storm Welder in the general direction of the Cawdor Rock Grinder and squeezes the trigger. Aiming once again, BS 5+, so it's 4s to hit, and has missed. One of the dice is showing an ammo check. The Storm Welder is unstable, so he's going to have to roll a 4+ to stop the giant cannon from having a catastrophic overload, which would see himself taken out of action immediately, so it's a 4+ to remain safe, and he is. Ammo check anyway on the Storm Welder, see if it carries on firing, 3+, and it's passed, so managed to bring enough charge packs for more than 2 shots. Well done. However, it does miss completely. And that's the end of round 2, end phase. Now Sundown is stalled and the driver is blacked out dangerously close to the incoming sandstorm. Needs a 4+ to try and recover, otherwise he's going to be swallowed by the radioactive sand. And he's failed, he remains unconscious. Sundown is going to be barreled over the back of the battlefield and into oblivion. Rolling Anvil stalled, will attempt to restart the vehicle. 7+ required, and fails as well, so it remains stalled also. And the Cawdor Rock Grinder Sufferance also stalled. 10+ handling check though for this one. So in order to restart it needs 10 and over, and a 9, so has failed, will also remain stalled. Moving ever closer towards the battlefield edge as everything moves 8 inches down towards the approaching sandstorm. Sundown, the outcast vehicle, is swallowed and is taken out of action, and the approaching wall of death continues unabated towards the rest of the vehicles. Round 3 priority phase, and the Velvet Privateers win it, so the Vansar get to go first. Bolderon picks up his plasma cannon, and because he's got suspensors he can fire his weapon as a single action. He's going to take a shot at the back of Astaroth, try and blow him off the top of Lady Alina's Revenge. BS 2+, no cover, so it's 2+ to hit. He has hit twice, firing on low power, so that is 2 hits. Strength 6, toughness 3, so it's 2s to wound. 2 dice rolls, and both have wounded. -1 AP, mesh armor, so it's 6+ saves on 2 dice. And Astaroth has failed both, so it's 2 damage, 2 hits. Astaroth has got 2 wounds, that's 3 injury dice. Bone, 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 all 3 serious injury. The Nacht Ghoul is face down. As Astaroth has been pinned right on the edge of the vehicle, it's an initiative check to stay on board, 2+, which he's failed. So finally he falls off, blown off the side of the vehicle by the plasma blast, and lands with a complete lack of dignity, face first in the dirt. Next up is Interrogator Forlax's own personal vehicle, the Eternal Contempt. He's going to do a move and fire action, turning slightly to get the outcast vehicle Grievous within his firing arc, and he's going to unleash merry hell with his twin-link bolters. BS 4+, he can use his +1 close range because of the photo goggles, so it's 3+ to hit, and has missed. Going to finish off the rest of his move and fire action though by moving forward the remaining 3.5 inches whilst turning. And then a move action, the rest of his 7 inches as far forward as he can. He does have power steering, so can turn twice per action, making it an extremely maneuverable little roadster. Rolling Anvil, the Ogryn truck, currently stalled and needs to restart. It's going to try and jumpstart the engine, which gives it +1, so it's 6+, and has failed on the first attempt. Simple action, however, so can try it again. 6+ required once more, and succeeds just. That's lucky, was getting very dangerously close to the table edge there. But yeah, whacking the engine very hard with a giant hammer seems to have worked perfectly. Grievous, the outcast speeder, is going to turn and perform a ramming action, which will cut straight through Astaroth unless he can get out of the way and into the side of Lady Alina's Revenge. Astaroth usually has an initiative 2+, however, because he is seriously injured, it is reduced to 6+. He needs 6s to jump out of the way of the vehicle, which he has failed. With move 8, it's a strength 7 hit, +1 for the wolf head ram on the front. Astaroth only has a toughness of 3, so it is 2s to wound. And is wounded, -3 armor pen in total. He only has mesh, so there's no save. It's 2 damage, +1 for the ram, so it's 3 injury dice, and there's everyone's favourite skull. Out of action. Astaroth is food for the Millisaurs. Grievous is going to carry on the ramming action though. Takes more than a deluxe speed bump to slow this bike down. It's going to go straight into the side of the Ridge Runner. So again, it's strength 8. The Ridge Runner's side toughness is 4, so it is 2+ to wound. And has wounded easily. -3 armor pen, 4+ save for Lady Alina's Revenge. That's no save. Damage 2 +1 for the ram, so that's 3 injury dice. And it's a catastrophic hit to the engine. Belching smoke and flame, -2 hull points. Can't move further than its move characteristics per turn. So in other words, it can't do a move action, and has a loss of control test at -1. Handling is 5+, but at -1 for the damage it's just taken, it's a 6+ to succeed. And passes, no problem. So no further insult for the Ridge Runner. Sufferance, the Corridor Rock Grinder, is currently stalled. It's going to attempt to restart. No, it's not. Possibly incredibly foolish maneuver. Rather than restarting its engine with an upcoming sandstorm right up its tailpipe, it's instead decided that sowing destruction is a far better use of its time, and is going to unleash merry hell with its twin-linked autocannons straight down the throat of Shadow Wraith. 4+ to hit. And has hit once. Strength 7 on the autocannon, toughness 5, so it's 3s to wound, and has wounded. -2 AP, so it's got 6+ save. Failed the save, and the autocannon deals 2 damage, so it's 2 damage dice. That's a penetrating hit to the hull, structural damage, -1 hull point for the limousine, and a handling check. Handling is 7+, and it looks like the 4-armed Emperor is laughing at the corrupted Genestealer Delac this day. The test has failed, that's a 6. So immediately Shadow Wraith becomes stationary and stalled, right on the cusp of disaster. So now, finally, second action, Sufferance decides it might be time to try and actually restart their engine. They're going for a jump start. Handling is 10+, but because they are down to their final hull point, they don't get the extra +1 bonus that you'd normally get for a jump start. So it is a straight up 10+ required to restart the engine, which surprisingly enough has failed. Still have a little bit of time. They won't be swallowed up next turn, but at 10+, it's not going to be easy to get that engine restarted anytime soon. Now on to Shadow Wraith, recently stalled itself. Is it going to exact revenge, or is it actually going to attempt to restart its engines? It makes for a sensible choice. The Obsidian Syndicate don't mess around. It's trying to restart its engines with a jump start on its first action. That's a 6+ required, which it does succeed on first time, so the engine is back up and running. Second action, it's going to turn, move and shoot action, 3 inches forward, and decides the most immediate threat is Balderon, stood directly in front wielding his plasma cannon, unleashes a jet of burning promethium straight into his face. That's a heavy flamer, strength 5, toughness 3, 3s to wound, and has wounded, not jammed. -1 armor pen with the mesh and body glove, that gives him a 5+ save. Failed, Balderon's failed his save. He was down to his last wound, 1 damage, so it's 1 injury dice. Serious injury. Balderon's face down in the dirt, and it's a blaze of 4+, and is once again ignited. It's that cloak, very flammable cloak he's wearing. Shrapnel, the Enforcer Patrolman, uses his respirator to use his full move, 3 inches to catch up with the limousine, and then the remaining 2 inches to climb up the back of the vehicle. And with his second action, he decides once again to empty his shotgun at point blank range into the corrupt Genestealer Delac vehicle. At this range, it's 3+ to hit, and has hit twice with salvo ammo, strength 4, rear toughness 5, so it's again 5s to wound. 1 has wounded, 1 got through, 1 didn't. -1 AP, 4+ save usually, so it's 5s to save for Shadow Wraith. And has saved. Very thick armor on the back of the vehicle there. Lady Alina's Revenge, the Vansar Ridge Runner, again decides to use its plasma coil engine, giving it +2 move with a chance of exploding, but does not overheat. So for this turn, movement characteristic is increased by 2. As it zips past Grievous, It's using its gas promethium engine once again to fire burning engine oil out of the back of its exhaust, possibly setting the outcast vehicle aflame. Strength 3, toughness 3, so it's 4s to wound and has failed to wound, but still has the chance of blazing. 4+ to set ablaze and has failed. The Ridge Runner, though, carries on its movement, turns 45 degrees, and then does a move and fire action as the final insult into the side of Eternal Contempt. Crack Missile with photo goggles, short range, it's going to be 3+ to hit. That has hit, not jammed. Crack Missile is strength 6, side toughness of 5, so it's 3+ to wound. And as wounded, -2 AP, so it's 6+ to save. Failed. Damage 3 damage dice coming up. That's a penetrating hit to the drive, which is a blowout, -1 hull point, -1 handling, and a loss of control test for Forlax's vehicle. With that -1 handling, it's knocked to 7+, so the loss of control test, 7+ to succeed. And has failed. Standard procedure, 1 to 3 left, 4 to 6 right. And that's a jackknife to the left. That's going to bury its nose right into that rocky outcrop. So when a vehicle runs into terrain, it uses its own strength against itself. So with move 7, it's going to take a strength 5 hit. Toughness to the front is 5, so it's a 4+ for Eternal Contempt to be wounded from the crash. And is wounded, -1 AP, save of 4+, so it's 5+ to save. And has failed, so he's going to take more damage, as 1 damage dice. And that's a glancing hit to the engine, which causes the engine to stutter, and Eternal Contempt to become stationary and stalled. With that, Interrogator Forlax decides it's high time for him to join the battlefield. Clambers out of the side of his recently crashed vehicle and unleashes both barrels of his Stormbolter into the Vansar Ridge Runner. BS is 2+, he's got an open line of sight, so it's 2+ to hit. And he hits 3 times, but the weapon is jammed. Strength 4, toughness 5, so he's going to need 5 to wound on 3 dice. 1 has wounded. -1 AP, so it's 6s to save. And Lady Alina's Revenge has saved. No damage whatsoever, but Forlax's Stormbolter has jammed, gone out of ammo. Ungot Groxchewer, the Ogryn, after his lucky escape from his overloading Stormwelder last turn, decides it's a great idea to just shoot it again and hope for the best. Might as well shoot at exactly the same target, so it's BS 5+, aiming again, so 4+ to hit. And once again he has missed completely 5 times, but at least he's not jammed the weapon up this time. Malkarium, Cawdor Firebrand champion, picks up his heavy crossbow, straps it into a firing position, and prepares to unleash righteous fury upon rolling anvil. Heavy crossbow firing crack, 3+ to hit, and misses. Useless. Round 3 end phase. Recovery test for the seriously injured Balderon, and is a flesh wound. Down to 2 toughness, still on fire, but at least now is face up. Sufferance, still stalled, attempts to restart its engines, needing a 10+, once again has failed, it's going nowhere. And Eternal Contempt also stalled, attempts to restart, and also fails miserably, 7+ required, that was a 3, no good. The sandstorm barrels onto the battlefield, drawing ever closer to our unwitting combatants, and Rolling Anvil is hanging on for dear life, dangling off the edge of the battlefield, half consumed by the sandstorm, but it ain't finished yet. Remember, the outer walls of Hive Octavian will appear at the start of round 5, at which point anyone that's left alive just needs to get off the battlefield into the Hive structure to escape the sandstorm. Round 4, priority phase, and the Sons of the Pyre Cawdor gang get it. Sufferance still stationary and stalled. Surely this time they're going to attempt to restart the engine rather than shooting haphazardly into their enemies. And yes, they're going to attempt a turnover, so it's a handling check at 10+, which is basically a rolling start, and the vehicle will roll die 3 inches as well. And predictably, that has failed. So it's going to roll die 3 inches. That's 1 inch. That 1 inch movement, move forward half an inch, turn and move forward another half an inch. So it does get a slight bit of useful maneuvering out of it. However, not enough to escape. Second action will attempt another restart. This time, because its previous attempt was a turnover, you do get +1 to the roll. So this time it is a 9+ to restart. And succeeds! With an 11, didn't need the +1 in the end, but Sufferance is back in business. Rolling Anvil, the Ogren truck, has absolutely no way to get past the rock grinder, so if you can't get past it, you might as well go through it. It's going to smash into the side of Sufferance, not a ramming action, because a ramming action would end its movement, and it does need to get as far away as possible from the oncoming sandstorm. So it's just a straight up vehicle collision. Move 6, giving it strength 5 +1 for the ram against a toughness of 7, so it's going to need 5s to wound Sufferance. And succeeds. Move 6 with the ram gives it -2, save of 4+, so it's a 6+ save for Sufferance. Failed, and that's damage 1 +1 for the ram, 2 damage dice. Sufferance is down to its last hull point, and that's a catastrophic hit to the hull. Weapon destroyed, causing -1 hull point. The autocannon is destroyed, it's a loss of control test. All of that is immaterial, however, as the -1 hull point knocks Sufferance down to 0, meaning the vehicle is wrecked. Malcarium, the champion, is blasted out of the back of Sufferance and thuds down onto the desert floor, but takes no damage. Rolling Anvil, however, is not necessarily going to come away from this untouched. Ramming into Sufferance does mean that it also gets a vehicle collision. Strength 5 versus toughness 5, so that's 4+ for Rolling Anvil to be wounded, and is not wounded. With the rest of its action, just piles the rest of its movement forward as fast as possible away from the southern table edge. The Ogren vehicle was also just short of impacting Grievous as well. Very lucky for the outcast to have avoided taking a side ram from a giant Ogren truck. Interrogator Forlax dumps his jammed Stormbolter and pulls out his massive Thunderhammer. Charge. Half movement for difficult terrain, however he is very close. So 3.5 inch charge, he gets in. 3+ WS with the Thunderhammer. He's got an auto pistol with rad rounds as well. 3 attacks, +1 for the charge, +1 for the second weapon. So the yellow dice is the auto pistol, blacks on the Thunderhammer. 3+ to hit on all. The auto pistol's missed, but all 4 Thunderhammer hits have got through, 2 of which on a 6, which gives them both shock and power, meaning those 2 are both auto wound and cannot be saved. So for the other 2 hits, which weren't power and shock, strength 5, toughness 5, it's going to be 4s to wound for the remaining 2 attacks. So those 2 have failed to wound. The first 2, which were power and shock though, auto wound and cannot be saved. Each of those is a damage 3 hit, so it's 2 damage 3 hits. Only 1 hull point remaining on Lady Alina's Revenge. And the first hit is a catastrophic hit to the drive, major malfunction, -2 hull points, -2 handling. Doesn't matter though, -2 hull points is enough, it only had 1 hull point left. Absolutely creamed it. Won't even bother rolling the second set of injury dice. Knockout blow from the Thunderhammer, eat that. Balderon, the Vansar Augmech, currently lying on the ground on fire, recently recovered from a serious injury. So Blaze, first off, strength 3, toughness 2, he's got a flesh wound, so it's 3s to wound, and is wounded. He's got a 5+ save to try and save it though, and passes. So no further damage, stands up, runs around in a random direction, lays back down on the floor and tries to put himself out, 4+ to extinguish the fire, and succeeds just. So back on the floor, no further damage, and no longer on fire. Grievous, the outcast light vehicle, activates his Gliss Injector, supercharging his engine. For this turn he gets +4 movement, knocking his movement up to 12 inches. And with that immense amount of speed, he's going to plough straight into the back of the recently extinguished Balderon. Balderon's got an initiative of 5+. He doesn't get any bonus because he is lying down. But he better hope he gets out of the way of this one, because at move 12, this is going to be absolutely brutal. And he has failed. So in move 12, it's going to be a strength 9 hit. The ram on the front is an additional +1. Balderon's down to toughness 2 because of a flesh wound. So it is 2+ to wound, which wounds. Armor pen is -3 and another -1 for the ram. His 4+ usual save is completely eclipsed. No save. Damage 3 plus another for the ram. So it is 4 injury dice. Flesh, 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 flesh. That is death by 1,000 flesh wounds. He is out of there. And the driver's going to be picking bits of Balderon out of his front bumper grill for the next month. Carries on the rest of his movement. This vehicle is also agile, so can make more than 1 turn per action. Remember, with his Gliss Injector, that's +4 move, giving him 12 moves. So this turn, he's been able to move 24 inches. Handbrake turns round the side of the terrain and tries to get in as much cover as possible from the upcoming vehicles. Shadow Wraith up next, and the Corrupted Delac vehicle is going to do a move and fire action, moves forward 2 inches, turns, and then a further 1 inch. Shrapnel needs an initiative check to see if he can stay on board the back of the vehicle. 4+ required, he's failed, so he has fallen off the back. It's not a far enough fall to cause any damage, but his pride sure needs mouth to mouth. With the rest of the move and shoot action, he's going to burn, burn, burn. Rolling Anvil, as well as Ungot Grokstewer currently stood on its back. Rolling Anvil first, strength 5, toughness 5 to the side, that's 4+ to wound, and has failed to wound. Ungot, toughness 5 as well, again 4+ to wound, and also fails, so that was rather pathetic. See if it can put people on fire instead. So Blaze on Rolling Anvil, 4+ to be set aflame, and succeeds. And as for Ungot, 4+ again, and fails. So all it managed to do was set the vehicle on fire. With its second action, it's just going to do a move action, turn slightly, and then powers up the battlefield. Shrapnel, the Enforcer Patrolman, having just seen his ride disappear unceremoniously off away from him, stands up, piles forward 2 inches, and then clambers up on top of Rolling Anvil. He basically needs to hitch a ride from someone, whether they like it or not. Malcarium, the Cawdor Firebrand, having just seen what the Enforcer was doing, decides that if it's good enough for an Enforcer, it's good enough for him, and he also moves forward 1 inch and then clambers up the side of the vehicle. So there's now an Enforcer, an Ogryn, and a Cawdor all on the back of Rolling Anvil, all praying to the Emperor himself that they don't get swallowed by the sandstorm before the vehicle has chance to drive away. Ungot Grokstewer, not at all happy with the 2 stowaways stood on the side of his truck, decides it's high time for some dying. Can't charge because he's pinned, but stands to his feet, picks out Malcarium as the bigger threat of the 2, and empties the full force of the Storm Welder into the Cawdor's face. 5+ to hit, can't aim because he stood up, and has missed. And once again, the weapon jams. It is unstable, so he's going to need 4, 5, or 6 for the weapon not to overload in his face. 1, 2, or 3 will see Ungot become the victim of a devastating weapon overload. Oh, and it has overloaded. He's been taken out by his own gun. The Storm Welder has blown up in his face. Not the best day in the office for Ungot. These Ogrins certainly know how to make an exit. Eternal Contempt currently stalled, needs to do a jump start, +1, handling 7+, so it's 6s, and has succeeded on 11, so the vehicle restarts. With its second action, it's going to turn and do a move action, driving up the battlefield, hopefully staying still in range of Forlax. I'm not sure if an agent of the Inquisition would be best pleased if his own vehicle just drove off and abandoned him on the battlefield. And that is the end of round 4. There's no recovery, there's no engines to restart, so everything just moves down the table, and there are the walls of Hive Octavian coming into view over the horizon edge. Rolling Anvil, the Ogryn vehicle, along with Shrapnel and the Cawdor Champion are all perilously close to the edge of the battlefield once again, right on the brink of being sucked up into the sandy maelstrom. So if people can now get off the northern table edge into Hive Octavian, they will be safe. Round 5, priority phase. And the Blood Eagles Enforcers win. So Shrapnel the Patrolman up first. He's going to attempt to blast Malkarium back to the warp with his Shredder ammo. Uses a template, so hits automatically. It's going to be die 6, strength 2 hits. So he's hit 4 times, isn't jammed. Strength 2, toughness 3, so it's 5s to wound. And 2 have wounded Malkarium. He's down to his last wound, so he really needs to save these. Mesh armor is 5+, minus nothing on the armor pen, so he needs 5s to save. Fail and fail. Both have failed, so that's going to be 2 damage. Flesh wound and seriously injured. Malkarium is blown off the side of the vehicle, face down in the dirt with an oncoming maelstrom of hell right on his heels. That might well be the end for the Cawdor Champion. Shrapnel, with his second action, clambers into the transport area of Rolling Anvil. If you're going to hitch a lift, you might as well do it in style. There's no point standing on the side passing initiative checks. If you're in the transport area, you can travel without the risk of falling off the sides every time it moves. Rolling Anvil up, still on fire. Blaze first, strength 3, toughness 5, so it's 5s to wound, and fails to wound. But this is the big one, has to do a cool check. If it fails this cool check, it will not be able to drive and will just be swallowed by the sandstorm. Needs to pass this in order to have any chance at all. 8+ cool, and has passed, just succeeded. Tries to extinguish the flames, 4+ required, and fails. So still remains on fire but can move as normal this turn. And it's going to go full throttle, trying to get as far away as possible. That's a triple move action, straightforward. If it does attempt any turns at all, it has to do a handling check in order to succeed. If it fails, it will go out of control. So it is going to have to make a turn. Going straight forward is going to ram it straight into the side of that rhino. It's going to be a handling check to see if it maintains control whilst going at full throttle. Handling is 7+ and has passed just with an 8. Carries on forward, pedal to the metal, and unfortunately Grievous is right in its path. Steamrollers forward into the side of it. It's going to be a massive impact. Strength 6, toughness 3, it's 2s to wound, and has wounded. -1 armor pen, minus another to the ram. Grievous has a 5+ save, that's no save whatsoever, therefore 2 damage dice coming up. That's a penetrating hit to the body, -1 hull. It's only got 1 hull point. Grievous is battered. However, Rolling Anvil might not come out of this scot-free. With the vehicle impact, it will take a hit back itself. A strength 7 hit against its front armor, toughness 5, so that's 3s to wound, and has been wounded itself in the impact. It's got a 6+ save though. Armor pen -2, 4+ save, so it's a 6+ for Rolling Anvil to try and save, and has failed. 2 damage dice back against the Ogryn vehicle, and that's a penetrating hit to the crew. The driver is wounded, -1 BS and -1 handling. Handling is down to 8+ going forward, but it is still up and running. It is still alive and kicking, not stalled, not dead. Rolling Anvil is still rolling. And with the rest of its movement full throttle, it's just going to pile forward in a straight line as far as it possibly can. So it's a triple move. For now, gets it as far away as it possibly can be from the approaching sandstorm. Malkarium, the seriously injured Cawdor Firebrand, face down in the dirt. All he can do is crawl. Crawls as far as he can, but barring a miracle from the Emperor, he's not going to be able to outcrawl the approaching sandstorm. Shadow Wraith realizes it's high time to get the hell out of town. Does a move action, turning halfway through. And then a move and fire action with his heavy flamer, moves forward a further 3 inches, and then spits a plume of burning promethium into the side of Rolling Anvil. It's going to hit both the truck and the Enforcer shrapnel stood in its back. Strength 5 hit, toughness 5 on the side of the vehicle, so that's 4+ to wound. And has wounded. Heavy flamer is not jammed. Armor pen -2, it's a 4+ save, so 6s for the vehicle to save. failed miserably. Rolling Anvil is already on fire, so there's no point rolling for further blaze rolls, so it's a single damage dice. That's a penetrating hit to the hull, -1 hull point and a handling check. So it's down to its last hull point. It's a handling check at 8+. Failing this could be devastating for the Ogrins, but succeeds just. Absolutely scrapes by. In the meantime, Strength 5 hit against Shrapnel, who has Toughness 3, so it's 3s to wound the Enforcer. Has wounded, -2 armor pen, flak armor is 6+, but an additional +1 against template weapons, and with his armored undersuit it's an additional +1, so in total 6+ to save. And he's failed terribly. Just the 1 wound, so it's straight to an injury dice. Could this be the end of the Enforcer? A flesh wound. Just the flesh wound. Adding insult to injury, can he be set on fire? 4+ to be ablaze. He is not set on fire, so the Enforcer is pinned with a flesh wound, but otherwise is still alive and kicking. Interrogator Forlax, difficult terrain, 2.5-inch movement, but he just makes it to the side of the vehicle with his first action. Second action, he's going to board Eternal Contempt, get back inside his fancy road car. And as part of the group activation, Eternal Contempt is just going to turn and drive as quickly as possible towards the outer Hive walls. So single move forward, move 7, and a second move forward 7 inches, right on the cusp of escaping the sandstorm. And with that, round 5 comes to a close. The sandstorm smashes forward, swallowing Malkarium whole, taking the Cawdor champion out of action as he's buried under a ton of radioactive sand. So from now going forward, because Hive Octavian is within their grasp, things will no longer move 8 inches down the table, but the sandstorm will approach up from the southern end, engulfing 1/4 of the board every single turn going forward. So the sandstorm is still pouring in. It is still going to cause carnage. You do still need to escape from it. There is no respite from its fury. Round 6, priority phase, and Forlax wins. So he's going to be first off the northern edge of the battlefield to safety in Hive Octavian, escaping the wrath of the approaching sandstorm. However, it's not over yet for everyone else. All the other combatants are desperate to get themselves to safety as well. First up is Shrapnel, gets back to his feet from being pinned and decides to take sweet revenge against the Obsidian Syndicate limousine that just blasted him with a flamethrower. Salvo ammo, 4+ to hit, rapid fire 1 dice, and he has hit 3 times. Strength 4, toughness 5 against the side of the vehicle, and 2 have wounded. That's 2 wounds. No armor penetration, so 2 4+ saves for the Obsidian Syndicate vehicle, Shadow Wraith. Both have failed. So that's 2 damage, 2 hits through to the side of the vehicle. It's got 2 hull points left. The first hit is a penetrating hit to the hull that causes structural damage, -1 hull point, and a handling check. There's still a second shot to go through as well. That has reduced it to 1 hull point. The second shot is a penetrating hit to the engine. Loss of power, another -1 hull point, which knocks it down to 0. Loss of control test, no one cares about that. Shadow Wraith has been junked. All that remains now is to see if Rolling Anvil and Shrapnel can get off the battlefield successfully before they're swallowed up by the sandstorm. Rolling Anvil is on fire though. Going to take a blaze, strength 3 hit, toughness 5, so it's 5s to wound. Not wounded. This is a big one though. Cool at 8+. Again, needs to pass this in order to be able to move. If not, it's going to go out of control and almost certainly be battered by the Maelstrom. 8+ to succeed. And just passes, gets an 8, so can move properly. Turns, moves forward as fast as possible towards the waiting Hive, and it's a 4+ to try and extinguish the blaze. Fails, so he's still on fire next turn. Close, no, doesn't make it. So we'll need 1 more cool check in order to get over the line. If not, we'll go out of control and almost certainly ram into the side of the buildings. The sandstorm continues onwards, now encompassing over half of the table. Round 7, priority. And the Chainbusters Ogryns get it, so it will be rolling anvil straight away. All this comes down to is basically, can they survive the blaze, and then can they pass the cool check and get over the line. Failing to pass the cool check will make the vehicle go out of control and slam it into the side of the Hive walls, leaving it to be engulfed by the Maelstrom next turn. Strength 3, toughness 5, down to its last hull point, 5s to wound. No, not wounded. This is the big one though. Cool 8+. If it passes, both shrapnel and rolling anvil will be off the battlefield and clear. Fail, and they're going to go out of control and either flip, roll, or ram into the side of the building. Whichever way you look at it though, bad news. 8+. Here we go. And 5, 9. Pass! Pass! There we go. He's through. Rolling anvil and shrapnel, along with Forlax, all escape the sandstorm, all make it safely into the Hive. Everyone else is left outside, buried alive. Thanks for watching. If you like what we do, feel free to check out our Patreon, the link's in the description. Failing that though, I'll see you next time. Like and subscribe, heretic.